Hey guys, and welcome to my very first photography tutorial, something that I thought I would never do, and it's not an easy one. That's the first thing, and secondly, it's uh, it's not about photography either. It's about um, post editing, and I posted this picture on the internet, 500 pics, and also on Facebook, and I was asked about color grading and how I got it. And instead of typing a load of rubbish, I thought I would speak a load of rubbish about how I got this effect. And so, without further ado, I am going to jump into Lightroom and get the image. Right. So, this is sort of where I started with as I was moving into Photoshop, and best that I start from literally scratch. So I've just done Control left click, and I'm going to create a virtual copy, and I'm going to reset. Just let the computer think about what the hell it's doing. Here we go. So this is what I started with, and because this is literally a raw import, there are certain things that now have not happened to this image to how I import from the SD card. And if I just show you on this side here, I have presets, user preset here, and I have camera standard. And set up in that is the camera corrections, which sorts out distortion and the vignetting. We can go into other silly things like removing the chromatic aberration, but again, I mean, the Nikkor 85mm is a pretty awesome lens, and you can only really see the vignetting because I shot this at f2. Another thing that I also change as well is the camera coloring, or the calibration here. And some people may have noticed that when they look on the back of the camera when they're shooting raw and then they get the picture into Lightroom, that it looks different. And this is the reason why. Because raw images do not have any color profile. JPEGs do. So when that goes into Lightroom, Adobe adopts the color correction that the Nikon JPEG image produces. And I don't know where you stand on the great debate of Adobe or the Adobe. I'm British, so therefore this is Adobe. And anyway, so when you click on the profile, you can go through various different options, but I want camera standard. So this now looks how the back of my camera looked on Friday. And we're almost, or I'm almost happy, but not quite with this image. There's a few things going on there. For example, I'm getting a little bit sort of bit of mishmash here going down there. There's not really much separation here. I want this guy really to stand out. The other thing as well is we're getting distracted from this line here, and of course, you know, these are all distractions that moves us away from what's going on here, and that's what we're going to want to sort of address before we move on to getting all of this color sorted out. So first of all, let's work out our crop. And if you remember from the original image, we had this sort of letterbox look to everything, and that is the ratio that I look, 2.39 by 1, and that is the current cinematic ratio that the majority of anamorphic lenses produce. And no, I did not shoot this with an anamorphic lens, because if I had, then I would have spent about, I don't know, 20,000 euros on a lens, and I just don't have 20,000 euros in my back pocket. And if I did, I probably would not be buying an anamorphic lens, although yes, I really would like to have one. So, bit of a race really. I think the first OEM to produce a marketable, you mean for the general public, anamorphic lens is going to be the winner, in my opinion, because everyone's seems to be shooting more video these days because of DSLR cameras, and and um, and we all love that sort of blue lens flare that we see so often in movies. I'm struggling, I'll be honest with you here. The reason why I'm struggling on this crop is because this was shot at an angle, which means, say, this will never line up with this. But it's about getting the best option, or the best compromise, should we say. And of course, when you are cropping, things that you shouldn't be doing is cutting off elbows, hands, and ears. But apparently, cutting someone's head off is perfectly fine. And so we've got that, and I'm happy. So this is all well and good, but this also needs to be slightly addressed. And one way of doing that is, again, going to our curves, or going to our blacks, and we can raise the blacks. And of course, now we've got a bit more of a separation here, and in here as well. This is going to make him stand out a lot more. I just want to sharpen the image slightly, and you'll notice that I'm just adding a touch more clarity. I'm not going overboard, I'm not doing this sort of stuff. Yeah, we're not wrapping these guys in plastic. We're just sharpening that image slightly, which clarity just, you know, it just adjusts the blacks and the whites slightly. And we'll notice we've got this clipping again, so we just want to raise the black point slightly. There you go, see, and now it's gone. And whites is not too much of a problem. We can have a quick look here, and you know, we can't really see any noticeable red markers. What am I talking about with red markers? Well, if I increase these whites here, you'll see we've got these red markers here. I'm just going to hit Command and Z to bring that back. So it is clipping, but we can't really see. So we're happy. Let's get on to doing some color grading. Most people will probably go straight to split toning. So if I was to generate this, got a bit of a blue effect here. Let's make that a little bit greener. There we go. And we're just going to adjust those highlights and fiddle around a little bit here. Does it need to be a touch higher? There you go. Somewhere around there. So that took under a minute, and again, some people would say fantastic, sorted. The problem with using split toning is that although this is saying highlights and this is saying shadows, the reality is everything is getting affected by this slider, and I will show you that as I increase the saturation, you can see that his head and the highlights are turning blue, and that is not what we want. We want more control, so we can reduce the saturation back down again. In fact, we can turn the split toning completely off, and we're going to work within this section here. Now, this is naturally how the tone curve looks, and we know in the past that we can decrease our shadows, we can increase our shadows, and so we sort out our lighting, the lights, the highlights, and the darks. But what most people, or what some people don't see, are the color filters that Curves offers. So if I go back down here, and we'll get rid of all that highlight and stuff like that. So we got here, there we go, we're down to highlight saturation, one more down, there we go. Shadow hue, there we go. Fat, clarity. So we can get our image back to where we wanted it to be. One more clip up, there we go. Now that black clipping's gone. Good. So what we do is we're going to click this button here, and this brings up our RGB, red, green, blue. And unfortunately, we do not want to adjust any of those colors. We want to adjust the opposites, and it's very difficult to remember, well, what's the opposite of red and so forth. So you just go back up to your white balance, and it gives you a nice little helper. So the opposite to blue is yellow, opposite to green is magenta, so that means to say that the opposite to red is cyan. And so if we click that, and that means to say down in this section here, we are going to adjust the shadows and create that cyan color. Pushing it up is going to generate more red. Pulling it down is going to give us that sort of cyan sort of filter. So we're just going to pull that down, and again, we're not we're not going to extremes. It's just a slight effect that we're after. There we go. But of course, what we've noticed, we've now got some sort of bluey greeny stuff going on here, and that was not what we wanted. And this is where the tone curve comes in. So you can then create another marker, and you can now push that back to center. So if you push that too high, his face will go red, and you just pull that back down, so you've just got that natural color again. Easy doing it. So we can create that teal color down in the lower tones, and we can keep the upper highlights unaffected. Of course, what we're going to do now is do the highlights. So we're going to select our blue, and again, if we pull that way, we get our yellows. Push, we get our blues. And again, it's all about being subtle. So we want to keep that, we're just sort of trying to create that sort of golden sort of look there. So we've got here, we've got a bit of yellow there, golden look there, and here that this looks how we want it to look. a little bit closer to the original image. But of course now all this has now got a load of yellow stuff going on in it. So again, we're going to push that marker. So that the highlights retain the yellow and the shadows have that teal look. And that you can't get by using split toning. And you can't get it either by doing color balancing in Photoshop. Even by using the shadows and the midtones and the highlights, the whole image still gets affected as well. You might notice here that I've got the luminance set on 0, and if we zoom in, hold on, let's do 1:1, shall we? You can see there's just a touch of noise going on there, and but we have to bear in mind I've shot this at 3200 f2 160th of a second, so I suppose it's not surprising there's a little bit of grain. I can well imagine that some people would look at this tutorial and say, I wish my camera was as clean as that at 3200, and I'm sure there's some people that have shot with a D750 and thinking my camera doesn't produce that much grain. That's because I turn everything off in camera. I have the noise reduction, the distortion, and also the vignetting control. I have that all turned off in camera. I prefer to have literally a clean image that comes out of the camera, because I know that Lightroom has all these profiles set up that I can use. So, so therefore I don't have to have the camera doing things when I've got the computer doing the stuff. And it will happen on every single image, and it will be universal in that respect. Anyway, let's get back to this. So you remembered I had this sort of letterbox style. So what we need to do now is go and edit this in Adobe Photoshop. Computer think about what it's doing. You wouldn't believe this is a brand new computer. There we go. Getting there. And so I can get stuff to speed up. I'm now going to go into Lightroom. I'm going to quit Lightroom. Skip for the time being. And this might help sort a few things out. Right. How to create a letterbox. So we're going to go to New. And you can do pixels, you can do inches, it doesn't matter. I found this is probably the easiest way of getting this to work. So we're going to do 16 inches wide by 9 inches high. I've got the background as black. And we've got this. Then what we need to do is we need to work out, let me get a pointer here. We need to work out our width of our image here. So this is the interesting thing here, 5878. Let me click OK. I'm going to go back to our new image 5878. So we're going to 5878, and you can see that if we have constraint proportions selected, then it will automatically change those. 5878. I'm going to click OK. let it work its life out. I'm going to go back to this image here. Now before we bring this image, in fact we can bring this image in. And of course we are going to line it up. And when I zoom in on here, there are things that I'm still not quite happy about. This difference here between this and this is not quite right. It doesn't sort of have that sort of feel that that they normally have. And of course the other thing as well is we always get this sort of vignetting thing, and I'm sure that some of you are probably going to say, well, why did you remove the vignetting if you're going to put it in? And the reason why I removed it initially was, one, I clicked the profile, which removes everything, distortion and vignetting. That's the first thing. And the second thing is we're going to cheat. There's no better way to explain it. So yeah, so I've just duplicated this this layer here, which is Control and left click, which then brings up the duplicate layer. I'm going to take the top layer. I'm just going to multiply, and then using my eraser tool, set the opacity to around 50%. And of course normal vignetting starts here, which means to say you're going to have this area, where's my thing here, so you'll get that area there, and it's all in the center, but that's not what we want. We want this guy highlighted, which is why I removed the vignetting from before, and we can get this to work out how we want it to look. So again, back to my eraser tool. I'm going to start in the middle. We're going to go up, and we're going to start in the middle. We're going to go down, and we're going to go out to the sides, and we're going to go out to the back, and then just going to make sure that he really is highlighted there. We're then going to merge the two layers, so Shift left click to highlight both of them, Control left click, merge layers, which is now going to, it's just gone and lowered our black point again. So we're going to go to Image, and we are going to go to Exposure, and we're going to take that offset and we're going to lift it. We're going to lift it to about sort of 0.002. Yeah, 2.5. Looks good. And that is the image. And if you don't have Lightroom and you only had Photoshop, this can all be done in Photoshop as well. And if you would like me to do a tutorial only using Photoshop by importing this and cropping to how it should be, I can do that for you. Let me know. If you liked this video and you found it useful, then of course I would appreciate a couple of thumbs up on the YouTube channel. That would be very much appreciative. Anyway, thank you ever so much, and I hope this has enlightened a few people as to how I got my image. I will see you around. Take care, and bye-bye for now.